Welcome back. Sorry, Mike Buschetti had a birthday here the other day, and this Oreo cake is here, and it's the best cake I've ever had. God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Todd. This doesn't happen on Letterman. I don't know.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I'm sitting here with a real talented guy I'm a fan of, Autofocus. Great, great movie. Now a new movie out. Here is the mini poster for it. It's called Up the Valley and Beyond, a biopic about the legendary cult filmmaker Russ Meyer. Please welcome the director of this and many other things, Todd Rosken. What's up, buddy?
How are you? Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
So, first of all, I want to talk to you about Autofocus real quick.
Okay.
What drew you to that? Were you a fan of Bob Crane, or was it the crazy life? And how do you get money for stuff? I love when a movie like that is made in Hollywood and done so well, because it's hard to get money for quirky stuff like that. What are the origins of that movie?
It was interesting. I was doing music supervising on a film before Autofocus, and
Right.
I was in the Capitol Records building on Vine Street.
Legendary.
The legendary.
I've been in there. It's unbelievable.
Right.
It's
So
great.
I was waiting to speak with one of the record executives there, and I was in the lobby downstairs, and they have like a smattering of magazines to wait, while you're waiting first to go upstairs. And there was a magazine. It was called Bachelor Pad magazine, like this 1950s motif of like these swinging bachelor pad, naked women with like martini glasses.
A fun time in the past, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the motif of the magazine. And then there was an article in the magazine about Bob Crane. And like, as you were saying before, it was about, it went over like this guy that had tons of video equipment the size of like refrigerators, and but would videotape himself having sex. And it was just like, okay, it's a little strange, but like I was thinking about it and I was ruminating, and oh, it sounds interesting. And then I did some research on him, and what struck me is that he needed to validate his own existence by seeing himself on video.
Right.
So it wasn't necessary. It was like he needed to see himself on like the Donna Reed show. He needed to see himself on Hogan's Heroes.
So it was just as much about him as the girls.
Exactly right. And then it was a ploy to get girls, and then he'd use his celebrity to get the girls, and then he needed to see himself having sex, and then it got like deeper and deeper into this obsession, and I found it really interesting, and these layers of what's real and what's happening now, and then videotaped, and his perceptions and his reality became kind of like really confused in this obsession.
Yeah, and how do you get money for a movie like that? That must be so hard for a studio to say. I mean, Kinnear agrees to do it, Willem Dafoe, two stars, but not like Tom Cruise gets a movie greenlit. Like, how do you get the money for it?
Right. I think Paul Schrader had a lot to do with it, because Paul Schrader directed the film, and he is awesome.
Oh, you wrote the movie. Paul directed.
That's exactly right.
Paul, who wrote Taxi Driver
and Raging Bull.
And Raging Bull, right?
And then I think a couple of other Scorsese films also.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought that's right. Paul directed and you wrote it.
I co-wrote it.
Right.
I didn't get the credit for co-writing it, but I did co-write. It was a strange experience, being that it was like my first big film, and it was I made a lot of mistakes. It was a learning experience, but a great experience, and I'm very grateful for it. And just to be able to see something like that on the big screen. But I actually, came up with a lot of the scenes and the dialogue and the nuances of the characters and their arcs and everything like that. So I should have made sure I had the writing credit. I should have done that. It was a big mistake. I did.
That's a Hollywood story. What are you going to do? You move on. Look, great piece of work. You move on.
Thank you.
John, go ahead. You got something for me?
I'm just wondering, was there something that you could call this? Was it mental illness that we're talking about in this movie?
With Bob Crane?
Yeah.
I think it's anytime maybe I guess an obsession can hinder what you're doing in your daily life. I think it could be some form of an obsession. I mean, of a mental illness. I mean, an obsession could be a good thing, also a productive thing in your life.
It's obsession. It's egomania, right? I mean, obviously.
Right.
So he was murdered in the 70s?
1978. And it was in a motel room in Phoenix, Arizona,
That's
right?
exactly
And he
right.
was the murder weapon, he was beaten to death with a tripod.
And then I think like cables wrapped around his neck. It was just crazy.
So
really like
a guy who was so involved, as close as you were in that story and telling it, what do you think happened? What was first of all? What was the name of the guy, the main suspect?
John Carpenter.
John Carpenter,
Right.
Not the movie director.
No. That's
okay,
right.
now, so what do you think happened? Was it Carpenter, in your opinion? Do you know? Can you make an educated guess?
They say, there's other theories. I mean, it could have been maybe a jealous boyfriend because Crane had no inner censorship as well, maybe I should stay away from this particular woman right now. Banged everything. Yeah. There was no limitation. So if he saw a chick at a bar, he doesn't care if she could have a wedding ring on. It didn't matter. He was going to take her back to the hotel room, bang her, and videotape it if he could. So,
and a fascinating thing about Bob Crane too is he had all sorts of friends. His Rolodex, if you want to call it that, in life had big time directors and producers, and it also had a plumber's assistant who he hung out with that afternoon.
Right, it's a full dichotomy of
right. But he also had just kind of had a falling out with John Carpenter, though, right? Right before the death.
That's right. He wanted to stop all this stuff and the orgies and letting that be the main thrust of his existence. He wanted to kind of clean up his act. And Carpenter, I guess, wasn't really into it because Crane was Carpenter's entree to this world of celebrity and being able to meet a lot of women.
It's a tough faucet to turn off.
Exactly.
I mean, so to speak. So, and then they were zeroing in on Carpenter, right? And then he died before they could take him to trial.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, wait, Carpenter?
Yeah, is that the story?
Yes, I think he did die before. But was he acquitted? You know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I thought he was. I might be completely wrong, but I thought he was tried. It was like a hung jury. They were going to retry it, and then during that process, he died.
That sounds correct.
Okay.
Exactly right. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Now, Russ Meyer, explain to the audience who he is and why you're fascinated enough with him to make a movie.
Well, I had seen one Russ Meyer film. The first one that I saw was Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens.
So he was a legendary cult filmmaker.
A legendary. Yeah,
did you lose something?
Yeah, it just sounds like a little bit less volume in my ear.
Oh, okay.
But
Does it sound all right, guys?
As long as you guys can.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
So, yeah. He started. Yeah, all right. I saw a film of his, and it just blew me away. And I was like, okay, I'm compelled to know who this person is a little bit more. And then, diving into research, I found out more and more interesting things. This is a movie. The guy's life is a movie because he personified what it is to be an independent filmmaker. He was an auteur. His whole life was film. He was consumed by it. But even more so, he was consumed by large breasts, and that was his driving.
The ultimate breast man, we're talking.
The ultimate breast man, and not ashamed. He was like that. He was very proud about it, and was very loquacious when it came to him talking about his love for breasts. And brilliant guy, like a genius. It was incredible. His vocabulary was like another level, and I've listened to his he'd have like big talks at like Yale University and stuff, and talking. And it's crazy, yeah. But his films were salacious and and provocative, but kind of like in an innocent way. They weren't straight up hardcore porn. But he started in the army. He's a still photographer in the 166 Photo Corps and under General Patton, and it was incredible.
The ultimate of conservatism.
right, and loved doing that. That was like the best time of his life, and his army buddies became his crew, and it was a very tight and just a few people that he worked with, and he was able to make these great films, and they were just beautifully crafted cinematic pieces. I mean, I just loved them. It was beyond just big breasts. There was something going on.
But at the time, there were a good number of people who felt as though these were pornographic films, correct?
Definitely back then.
Back then, exactly right. Well, I think his first film was in '59, The Immoral Mr. Tease. So, like back then, they're very, very innocent. It's like the beginning of Playboy and stuff, and you just show a bare breast, and it's like, oh my God, So with these films, you kind of had to get past the censorship and like the Hays Committee or whatever, you had to put in like some type of a moral message or rather let it be like some educational thing. But he was able to like put in comedy and make it like more of a narrative. And his films were just like stunning pieces of art. Amazing. I mean, I recommend all of his films to everybody.
Wow. Okay.